Morning, morning.
Is it morning?
I think it is morning.
I think it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon when they're watching this.
It is.
Hello.
So, welcome to the latest instalment of our Portugal adventures.
It's an exciting one.
It is. So what are we doing today?
Well, as you know, we've viewed 7 different properties and we've decided not to carry on viewing for the moment because there's one that we just couldn't get out of our minds.
Which one was it? Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7?
It was one of them, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it just stuck with us. We fell in love with it. And we've been really practical. We've talked about all the pros and cons of each of them as we've gone along, but we've also talked about it just us and with Rosie, of course. And we said, what about this? What about that? But ultimately, it's the one for us, isn't it?
It is the one for us, yeah.
So we're going to we have put an offer in, which is really exciting.
It is very exciting. A little bit scary, but very exciting.
Yeah.
So which property do you think we're going for?
I think they probably already know.
Yeah.
We haven't been very subtle,
No,
have we?
No, we don't do subtle, do we?
No. So, as you might have guessed, we've gone for number... We are Those Weirdos, a family of 7.
We've been living, working and travelling for 2 years in our self-converted Sprinter van.
I have a chameleon.
We're driving to Portugal to find a bit of off-grid land to buy, then we're going to apply for residency and avoid the Schengen restrictions caused by Brexit.
We'll be filming every bit of the process so you can come along with us and be part of our journey.
I think they probably already know. Yeah. We haven't been very subtle, have we?
No, we don't do subtle, do we?
No. So, as you might have guessed, we've gone for number 3, Lobatera.
We have. So yeah, it's had a lot of mixed results in the comments. Some people absolutely love it too, like us, and some people concerned about, access or fire or a lot of work and so on. We'll have a look at that in a bit more detail as we have a chat about it on video.
So it was just the one for us, really.
So yeah, it ticked all the boxes, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
For our sort of personal requirements.
And anything that we were a little bit unsure about while we were walking around the property, we've come up with plans for. So it's awesome. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, we knew straight away, really. Somebody said in the comments yesterday that you'll know as soon as you see it, and they made an analogy of how we may have felt about each other when we first met. And when you meet somebody and you just know they're the person that's right for you. So we all knew that we loved it when we were walking around, but then the logical side kicks in. For me, it was a lot like the comments. I was walking around going, oh, it's a lot of work. But then breaking that down to what does that actually mean. So what we did was we viewed the land and then we rang up the agent, which I think we mentioned in a previous video, and we said, can we come and stay on the land so we can have a better look round? He said that was fine. And then we've actually spent about a week on the land before we put the offer in.
Yes, yeah, with permission. There's nobody around here. The neighbours don't come and go or anything, the people that own the neighbouring bits of land. So it's been really peaceful. And then each day we've done a little tour for ourselves around the land, all the way down to the bottom, all the way back up. There's different, the terraces on one side and the boulders on the other side, and the bracken down at the bottom. We just kept walking around and around going, how do we get water up? And then discussing all the different ways we might do that. And, we wouldn't be able to get the van to the bottom. Is that going to be a problem? And then we discussed that thoroughly, and it just came up. We had a not easy necessarily. We had a solution for every potential problem that we were all really happy with. So it works for us.
So number 3 it is.
Fingers crossed on the offer.
Crossed, yeah. in a low offer. We followed advice from a friend who was a property developer who now lives in a van, and also from other people that live in the area. And the general consensus is that the land prices are perhaps 20, 30, 40% over their value, so negotiate hard. So we put in a low offer, and then we looked at what the maximum is that we'd like to spend in an ideal world. So as Missy said, we went in at 13,000, and
it was 17,500 on the market.
Yeah. So we'd be happy if we get the land for 15,000, bearing in mind this is in euros, so the rate of exchange is not too bad at the moment. So
Yeah.
we're kind of looking at
15, 16, that would
Yeah.
be okay. I mean, I honestly don't think I'd pay full price because it's so lovely and it's still in our budget, but it'd be nice to get it for less. So
Yeah. So what we've been doing in the week that we've been staying here, so as Missy said, we've been looking at potential, not issues, but things that needed to be overcome. So there's a lot of clearing to do. The land, be it beautiful, it is unkempt. It's not been cared for about 30 years.
you can see where people have chopped down trees and cleared scrub in the summer months like you're supposed to by law, but then it hasn't been burnt or taken care of or anything, so there's just piles and piles of trees and logs and brush everywhere, plus this year's growth, so it's going to be a lot of work.
It is going to be a lot of work.
That's actually one of the comments that's come up almost every single person. It's going to be a lot of work. Oh, are you sure? You know, it's a lot of hard work, and we don't mind work. What else are we going to do with ourselves? Just sit down in our chairs and go la la la, drinking a beer. We do like doing that too. But I think actually doing some physical work after 2 years of sitting around in the van, I think that'd be fantastic. We're really looking forward to it.
And I think one of the important things to say is that if you're not living in a van, or you're not looking at off-grid lifestyling, or you've not actually lived in an off-grid lifestyle, it's very similar to van life in that there's a very strong and close-knit community which is very supportive. So what we found in the week that we were here is there's actually a WhatsApp group for the valley, as it's called, and we found out that there's a roughly 45 families, individuals, small communities in the area that's loosely called the valley.
It's amazing.
And it is amazing.
Because the actual Lobatira feels like it's in the middle of nowhere. It's so remote, it's totally quiet. Most days, all day long, all you can hear is birdsong. Crickets, wildlife, but no people, no music, no traffic. So that's fantastic, but you're thinking, oh, maybe it's a bit remote, but it's not, because a couple of minutes drive or walk even in different directions around the tracks here, and you come up against not just like-minded people doing a similar thing to what we want to do, but families with kids.
Yeah.
And we'd never even could have planned for that. It's like absolute serendipity. It's amazing.
No, we had quite a few comments from people saying, what about Rosie? Is it not too isolated? How's she going to make friends?
Fair points, fair points. If all you know is that we're looking for remote areas with no neighbours, that does sound like something that we've skipped over and not thought about. But there's actually a really awesome... She hasn't met any of them yet. Obviously, they're not necessarily going to become best of friends, but because they're living a similar lifestyle, they'll get each other, and town is not far away either.
No. So there's 12 families living close by, of which 5 of them have girls that are between 11 and 13, which is just amazing. So we've reached out to those, and I think it's going to be great for Rosie. There's, it's a wonderful place.
And me mentioning town not being far away, obviously if Rosie fancies going to the cinema with some of her mates at some point, or going out for a meal as she gets older and moves through her teens, that's all entirely possible. I'm going to learn to drive at some point, so within 20 minutes she can have all the delights of the local town. There's just everything they might ever possibly want there as a teenager. Clothes shops, game shops, and so on.
Castelo Branco itself is just over a 20-minute drive, of which it's actually quite close, but 10 minutes of the drive is on the tracks into the property, and then 10 to 13 minutes is on nice roads into the town. It's quite a large town, so it's got everything. So it's got
everything. Yeah. Everything. Every time we find another thing, we're like, oh wow, it's got one of those too.
Yeah.
Go on, let's reel off some of the stuff.
So yes, it's got a full shopping centre like you would have in a normal large town, with all kinds of cafes, restaurants, It's got 3 or 4 large DIY type shops, similar to sort of B&Q type places.
One of them sells beekeeping equipment and winemaking equipment and
Yeah.
stuff like that. That kind of specialised stuff, which is amazing.
Yeah, so everything you'd need
Yeah.
is close.
There's public swimming pools. There's a cinema. There's vegan restaurants and cafes, at least 3 of, which we haven't been to try yet, but we're keen to. There's 2 medical centres and a decent hospital right in the centre, and there's other medical centres near us as well, even nearer in littler villages. So for those of you that are worried about, you know, what would happen if one of you got ill or if you had an accident, we're covered for that.
Yep, and quite a few people have said, what about the coast? Because inland central Portugal is absolutely roasting in the summer. We've had highs of over 40 for a week.
Yeah, we're quite pleased actually that we got to experience the summer while we were here, because so the winter might be cold, might be very, very wet, but I think this is probably the most trying time. It's when there's no water, the heat is incredible, the sun, the fire risk and so on, and we've been here and we know that it was all right.
Yep.
We managed.
So I was leading on to say that 20 minutes away is a very large lake, and it's huge. So the river lakes, swimming rivers as they're called, there's 10 or more park-ups around the lake, which are quite remote, so you can go off for the day, 20-minute drive, go swimming.
Yeah,
And it's very much like being at the beach, isn't
that
it?
has really saved us on those really hot days when it was 41, 42 degrees. All of us went in. The cats went in. The dogs went in. And you could just lie in the water and keep yourself really cool. So that was, if we didn't have that, that would be a big negative, wouldn't it? If there was nowhere to cool down.
Yeah.
So, plus the coast itself is actually only 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours drive straight across Portugal, which we could easily do in a day.
Yep.
Find a nice air or campsite or a park up over there. You can stay overnight.
Yep.
And even, you know, I mean, it's Portugal. It's quite weeny, really. If we wanted to go down to the beauty of Quarteira in the Algarve, that's only 5 hours in a 5-hour drive.
Yeah, hour and a half from Spain.
We did it, yeah. We did the drive from the Algarve to here over 2 days. Could have done it in one if we pushed the boat out.
Yeah.
So we're well connected. There's lots. The other thing people were asking, did we have it near us, was supermarkets. We do have a couple of mini markets really, really near us, but in Castelo Branco there's a Lidl, there's an Intermarché, there's an Auchan. I think there's 3 or 4 other different supermarkets, so we're covered for supermarkets. At the Intermarché there's a water point where we can get fresh water. You have to pay €2 and dump your waste and empty your pots and everything. Bins, there's lots of bins everywhere, but there's a recycling point at Intermarché.
So
What
it's
else?
10 minutes to the nearest, it's a village really, but that's where the local mayor is based, so that's where you go to do any paperwork or anything like that.
Yes, there's a post office there too.
Post office, there's a small little kind of local shop like you'd get in a typical village in the UK. There's a few bars and restaurants.
There's a garage just up the road, 20 minutes away or so, that sells LPG for our gas.
Yep. So it's
It's magic.
so yeah, it's kind of like you know, it's completely rural, completely middle of nowhere when you're on the land, but 10 minutes away is the main road. 10 minutes after that, you've got the big town. So it's got everything.
Yeah.
And the magic and the beauty of the fact that there's so many like-minded people close by.
Yep.
And they're so friendly and already reaching out and offering help and
Yeah.
saying if you need wood, get it from here. If you need this, you can get it from there.
Somebody said, oh, are you planning on building a tiny house? I'll come up and help you for a few days, bring my tools. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is wonderful.
Very cool.
So number 3 it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other concerns, let's see, what did other people say? They were worried about the water because our well is right at the very bottom of the hill. There's no other, and there's a stream there that's just outside of our border. It creates the border between us and the next door bit of land. So how would we get water? Of course, that was one of our very first thoughts as well. As you know, it was on a top 10 list. Water's important. So our ideas so far for getting water where we need it are?
So yeah, we've done a lot of research. So the first thing you need to do is to get a pump and then drain out the well and then get the bottom cleared to remove any silt that's collected up and any branches or bracken that's dropped in. Give it a clean, let it fill back up, and then at that point you can get the water tested to see its suitability at the very one end of the scale for watering your plants, and at the other end to see it might even be suitable for drinking. And once you've had it tested, And then of course the problem is getting up the hill, and when you don't understand water management as perhaps we didn't, you think, my God, that's a bit of a task, because it's right at the bottom and a lot of the terraces are higher up. But having spoken to multiple of people locally who live in the same sort of landscape, you've got a lot of options. So you can get a small pump with very little power and then have that running off solar, and then trickle feed water into, say, IBC containers, or you can get circular concrete rings that you can collect 20 or 30,000 litres in, or you can get a bigger pump and then pump it to different places on your land, either to a natural pool or to IBC containers.
Yep, we know somebody locally who uses a lot of water because they have a horse farm, horse ranch.
Yeah,
where they have horses and stuff. So they said that they run their pump with a generator for half an hour once a week, and that pumps enough water up for them to use all week long. And that's watering their gardens, their vegetables, their horses, and for use around the house.
Yeah.
That's not bad, is it really?
And the second thing we looked at was, which we would probably do in parallel to that, is that if you build a tiny house or you want to shade your IBC containers from the sun, put a roof on, and then during the rainy season you can collect that water. And although that would run out during the summer at some point when it doesn't rain at all, it means you can store up water in the wet season when there's a lot of water around.
Yep. The other thing is, when you have some kind of water collection, water storage tanks, you can pay the bomberos, the local fire service, and they'll come around with a tank of water for a small amount of money and fill up your water tanks. We know people that have done this. I've looked it up online. It's an actual thing that they do.
Yeah, and they can deliver 20 to 30,000 litres for a very small cost. So even if you couldn't get enough water from rain management or from the well, you can, I think we've kind of looked at, there's always a solution.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, the other thing when you were talking about pumps is there's also such a thing as a ram pump. A few people have recommended it to us. We'd already found out about it previously when we were researching land in Portugal. And a ram pump sounds like a really good way to go as well, because it doesn't need power. It uses the movement of water. So lots of different options for water.
Yep. And then one of the other concerns that we had, and a lot of you have had from the comments, is fire. So realistically, fire is just a problem pretty much everywhere in Portugal. Obviously more of a potential problem in the rural areas where there might be a lot of trees, or access or escaping a fire might be difficult. So we had a guy here to have a look at the options, and the simple answer is that a fire that's raging travels at 70 kilometers an hour. So if you were in your van on the tracks, you wouldn't be able to drive at that speed, so you can't escape the fire. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to sit it out. So you have to manage the land appropriately so that you've got a safe area.
You do it in advance. Yeah.
And you clear that land so that you wait out the fire in the centre, and then you have other things in place. So you might have a large collection of water, be that in the IBC containers that we mentioned earlier, or you might have a pool, so that if the firemen come, they can use that water to put out the fire.
Bomberos can get to our land, by the way.
But also the other thing you can do is then any small fires that break out where you're kind of escaping the fire, you can go round with sprayers and put them out. So it's really about the same as the animals on the land. It's learning to live with that possibility and managing it with an open mind. So it's the same logic as, if you have something in your office or your workshop that potentially is a fire risk, you get the right fire extinguishers and you get the right blankets. So same on the land really. It's clearing the flammable areas where we're going to live, and then making it as safe as possible in the event that there was a fire.
So we have a plan, and we'll do a video all about that once we're fully set up and prepared for it.
Yeah.
Of course, the fire risk season is just about to end, it having rained copiously a couple of nights ago. So at some point in the next month, the fire risk drops right off, so we can make our plans all through the winter and then be ready for next summer.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody asked several people asked, what will the access road be like in the winter? And aren't you worried about that? You might not be able to get in and out. It's a good question. It is something that we considered as well when we were first here. And since we've met so many of the local community in the last week, we've asked everybody, what's the road like? What's it like? Can you drive? Do you drive? And everybody so far has said it can get a little bit slippery in places, but it stays firm for the most part, and it's fine to drive in and out on.
Yeah, and all the boulders that you've seen on the land and the neighbouring landscape, which is very typical of this area, are granite boulders, and the granite is quite soft. So what's happened is all these tracks are primarily made up of natural gravel that's formed from the erosion of the granite, which is free draining, and also means that although they look like quite difficult tracks, they're not made of earth, they're primarily the granite, so the water drains quite quickly.
It's not, if it was dirt, it would churn up into mud, and it would just be really thick, and you might get stuck, or you might slide all over the place. And all of the locals that have lived here through many winters have told us it's not going to be a problem, which is great.
And the other simple solution is, rather than using our van all the time, I think at a later date we'd get a little banger of a car, €500 car, and use that for shopping, and easier to navigate perhaps when it's raining and wet, not driving a 4-ton van. So there's always solutions.
Sensing a theme.
Yeah.
A few people were worried about the boars. We're a little bit worried about the boars. I was more worried a week ago, but again, talking to people, doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. A few people have said let your dogs pee all over the property, and that will put the boars off. And somebody was worried that during shooting season that the Portuguese might come walking across the land shooting at the boar, but we're not in a shooting area.
No, what it is in Portugal is, if you're driving around, you might see on a lot of properties at the entrance and on the borders of the properties there are little red and white signs that look a bit like a no entry sign, and they're square, and what that sign is that means that a person that does shooting is allowed to enter that land with the owner's permission to go hunting. So funnily enough, because in this area the majority of people that are living off grid, which own most of the land here, are vegans, they don't allow shooting on their land. So there's no signs in this area.
And we're thinking we're going to put up, we can't fence the whole land at once, it would be ridiculously expensive and really hard to do, but we might fence certain areas. We might fence our vegetable garden off once we have a vegetable garden, to keep the boars out. Although we have heard that, you know, a determined boar will just push a fence right over. We're not worried about them really. We'll wait and see. At the moment it looks like there have been signs of boar, but we haven't seen anything fresh. We've not seen any poop, we've not seen any fresh tracks, we've not heard them, seen lots of deer. Saw a deer with babies the other day, which is amazing.
Yeah, I mean the wildlife is incredible. We saw a large-eared European fox, which are quite unusual and rarely sighted, so it looks a bit like an English fox, but it's grey and then it's got massive ears.
Like a cross between a fox and a wolf.
Yeah, so he was cute, and he didn't actually notice us, so he was walking across, and then Juan hadn't noticed him and was asleep, and the fox walked 6 foot in front of Juan, and then Juan suddenly went, "Whoa, what's that?" And the fox went, "Oh my God, what's that?" And then the fox ran off, and Juan was like, "Oh my God." And then another night we've seen a scorpion.
Yeah, that was cool.
And there are
The comments are going to be like, "No, scorpion's terrible," but no, it's really cool. He was so cute. He was only about this big, about the length of my finger, and it was again Juan that spotted it. It was all dark, and Juan was like doing his "that's something interesting" kind of stance. So we turned on the torches and we shone it out, and there was a little scorpion. He was running away from us as fast as he could get. He was not hanging around to come and jump on us and sting us to death.
No, so
Plus, you looked him up, and he wasn't even dangerous to people, was he?
No, I mean if he stung you, it would be quite unpleasant, painful, like multiple wasp stings, but not life-threatening, just uncomfortable. You might need to take antihistamines and painkillers. And it's the black scorpions that are dangerous, but they're rare and not very commonly seen.
So there's another one for the worry list, scorpions.
Yeah. But you don't see them really. I mean, they're here, they're in this area, but people that have been in this area for 2 years or more have said, "I've never ever seen one." So we
count ourselves lucky that we got to see it.
It was quite beautiful. It was an amazing little creature.
Somebody was worried about the soil pH. Of course, that is obviously a concern. Down at the Bracken area, we're not sure what we might do with that yet. We're thinking maybe a natural pool, maybe fruit trees. So we'll worry about that when we come to it. And the rest of it, it's not all pine. There's a lot of pine around us. There are some pine trees, but it's not really piney.
No,
There's a lot of oaks.
It's not dense forest. Most of the pines on the land are young.
Yep.
and any of the bigger pines have been cut down at some point in the past to collect their wood.
So, sorry.
And the small pines are easy to cut down for fire management and clearance for planting and so on.
So as far as soil pH goes, yes, obviously it's something that you have to consider when you're going to do growing, but the first thing we would do is clear and scrape and then build up. We're big fans of the no-dig method, so we would put cardboard down to suppress the weeds, and then lots and lots of well-rotted compost on the top. We've got contacts, found out where we can get hold of manure from, nice fresh horse manure that we can let sit and rot down. So yeah, that's not a big concern either. Somebody else, will we buy a tractor? No, I don't think we will. I don't think we will. Just I think the main comment we've had is it's going to be a lot of work. Always going to be a lot of hard work. And yeah, it is, but wouldn't that be fantastic to
I mean,
work in the soil and see the transformation?
Like any kind of project, you know, buying an older house in England that maybe's run down and requires complete renovation, that's a lot of work.
Yeah. Building the van was a lot of work, and then we got to do fabulous couple of years worth of travelling around in it, and it's fabulous. So we're happy to have the work.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most extreme, somebody said we had rose-tinted spectacles on, and that we didn't realise how much work it is. But having spent a week here before we put the offer in, we've looked, and rightly so, there is a lot of work, but I think Rome wasn't built in a day. We don't intend to clear all of the land ever. We intend to leave a lot of it wild.
Absolutely.
And to work with the nature. So we might cut paths through some areas so that we can walk, but not do any other work, so that the natural habitats remain undisturbed. We'd clear, you know, there's 15 or 16 terraces, more land for farming than you'd ever need to grow vegetables to be self-sustainable. So maybe we'll only use 2 or 3 of the terraces and the rest can stay natural.
Yeah, I think a few people from the way that they've commented, they seem to think that if we get the land, that we would need to clear the whole thing and then landscape it and, you know, strip it all back to the bare soil and change it all. That, you know, if you want to have that kind of land, we would have bought a big flat empty field like property number 1. That would have been ideal for that. One little pass with a tractor and it all would have been ploughed up and flat, and you could have done straight on it, but we didn't want that. We want wild. I want to live surrounded by trees and birds and insects and stuff.
And on cue all the birds start singing.
I know, aren't they fabulous?
Yeah, there's a lot of birds. I mean, the wildlife here is fantastic. We've got a couple of owls that talk to each other in the evening. All kinds of birds that we've never even heard of. All kinds of little blue tip type birds. All different types. It's absolutely wonderful. They're all in the tree in front of the camera right now.
And jumping back to what you said, the commenter who said that he thought we had rose-tinted specs on. To that person I say, what's wrong with having rose-tinted specs on?
So yeah, I mean, we've always been impulsive, but we've always looked at solutions, haven't we?
Yep.
So there's always a solution. So yeah, I think we have got rose-tinted specs on.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, always look for a solution.
It's the best way to look at life.
Yeah.
Through rose-tinted specs. Because the alternative is to look at everything that could go wrong, and then feel really doom and gloom and like, oh my god, you know, it's going to be loads of work, and oh, what if the rain comes, what if there's fire, what if there's this, what if there's that, and you're going to spend your whole life just feeling really freaked out by it. Like, on the tractor's coming back now.
Yeah, we'll just wait a minute.
We'll just wait a minute.
A little digression there for the tractor, and the guy on the tractor, we've met him twice while we've been staying on the land, and the first time he came and he brought us a box of peaches.
Yeah.
Massive box that he'd just harvested, and then the second time he had a trailer full of these amazing onions, and he just gave us about 50 onions. And he said he was an organic farmer, and he's about 5 or 6 properties behind us.
Yep.
And he doesn't speak any English, but he's a lovely, happy chap. He's always waving and all that. So yeah, nice neighbour.
Very nice. People have asked, what are we going to do when the land is so much work and we still want to travel? And also, how are we going to be here for 90 days and then leave it for 90 days? How's that going to work? So obviously we're hoping to get our visa. We applied in February, we still don't know, but we're going through, things have been happening with the appeal recently, so hopefully we'll have news for you on that soon. If we have our visa, then we'll get residency, so we won't be 90 days in, 90 days out, which is fab. And yes, we do still want to travel. And lots of our friends are just about to set off on big travels all around Europe, which is really, really exciting for them, and we're so happy for them. And part of me goes, oh, I wish I could be doing that nice big journey as well, because they're going places we've never been. But this is our journey at the moment, and for us traveling it is quite hard still, all the different restrictions and so on, so we're going to be happy to settle on the land for a little while, aren't we?
Yep.
And then we're not going to rush into getting any kind of livestock, because obviously animals make it, we'd love to have goats and donkeys and chickens and stuff, but as soon as you have animals like that, then it does restrict your ability to travel. So we'll keep it at the moment so that we can jet off and swan around in the van for little bits at a time. Yep. And then if it opens up a little bit in Europe, if it's all a little bit more friendly everywhere for traveling, then maybe we'll go off on a 6-month journey or something. Yep. And have the land to come back to.
And if the visa doesn't go through, then it doesn't go through. You know, we're pretty easygoing, and we'll deal with that and manage that at the time. So it's not a problem.
We can always reapply.
Yeah.
We've heard from people who got refused and reapplied and then got it the second time round. There's options.
Yeah.
There's always solutions.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's today's catchphrase. Oh, somebody asked about habitation license. They said, well, you won't be able to live there because you don't have a habitation license. I'm not sure how they know that there isn't a habitation license, because there could have been one. But the good news is that the ruin on the property it was built pre-1951, and our lawyer thinks that there's a very good case for us to be able to get a habitation license, doesn't she?
Yeah, well, it was better than that because it was registered. So that means that in simple terms, you're almost certain to get the planning permissions to get a habitation license and make good the house, and even pull it down and build another house of the same footprint to live in.
Yep.
And it's a sort of in stages application. So the first thing to do is to get it registered now with a plan of its size so that you get a habitation license. And then when you start farming the land, you can maybe upgrade that and get urban planning for that piece of and get urban. So yeah, so the habitation I don't think is a problem according to the lawyer. We should be able to change the permissions, to live on the land and to convert the ruin into a house at a later date.
So we just got to keep our fingers crossed that our offer gets accepted, or that we get the land, and that it doesn't take months and months and months, because at the moment we are still on our 90 days because we don't have a visa. So I'd like to get the land sorted before that runs out, and then we'll deal with the habitation license.
Absolutely, yeah, it's all the stages.
Yeah.
And worth also mentioning on the visa, we've got an excellent lawyer, Liliana, and if anyone needs a lawyer, happy to give you her name and details. She's been recommended by so many people. But what she said is that the way that Portuguese law works in very, very quick and simple terms is that because it's not our fault that the CEF have been partly on strike and disruptive as they change over how they work, and with COVID as well, that we should be able to get written permission to stay in Portugal until they either approve or decline the visa. Mm-hmm. Or alternatively, there is an extension to the 90 days, so we can apply for that, so we get 180 days. Or the visa might be accepted, and you just have to learn with Portugal. Everything is very slow sometimes, and you just have to go with the flow and see what happens. So yep. Whatever happens, we'll come to that when it happens.
Yep. And then the last final thing before we sign off for this week is somebody said that if this was their land, after a long hard day of work, and they finally got to sit down and rest and relax and crack open their one beer, the sound of the crickets would drive them insane. But luckily we love the sound of the crickets. Every evening they start up, and I've said, oh, isn't it like music? They're like violins, all in the trees surrounding us. So yeah, if crickets aren't your thing, birdsong isn't your thing.
And in the
And it's
video,
not for you.
in the video that they made that comment, there are two types of. There's cicadas who make their rumble during the hot sunny days, so you can't hear them at the moment because it's not warm enough yet. And then in the evening it's the crickets, and they kind of cross over, so as the cicadas stop, as the sun's going down, the crickets start, and they're both, you know, very relaxing sounds. I love them. The crickets are amazing. I mean, we were listening to the crickets last night and it's just wonderful. It's like the sound of the sea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very relaxing.
Yeah, beautiful. We absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to sit down and rest in the evening with my glass of sangria without the music of the crickets.
So there we go. Offer is in. Will it get accepted? Will we get gazumped? Because there are other people looking at the land.
Yeah.
So it might not even, you know, offer might not be accepted, or we might have to go up. Same sort of process as buying a property everywhere else. It's usually rumoured that it can take a long time for your offer to be accepted, because quite often the land is owned by a large family, and each family member has to agree to everything in Portugal. And then once your offer's accepted, every single family member has to be checked by the lawyer to make sure that they approve the sale.
Before that, they have to ask the neighbours of your property to see if they would like to buy it instead,
Yep,
which
so-
is crazy.
Might be that you negotiate a really good price, and then when they go out to a neighbour, he goes, "Oh, actually, that's a good price. I'll have that," and then they get preference.
Yeah.
So
So
just
fingers
because-
crossed, huh?
Yeah. So we might have made a decision, and in a week or 6 months, they say, "Actually, no, you can't have the land."
But if that happens, then it wasn't meant to be.
No.
So it's fine. It's fine.
I'm sure it'll happen.
So excited.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
Oh, we're putting in an offer.
Yep. So yeah. So there you go. Thanks as always for watching,
Yeah.
and we're very excited, and really excited that you guys are following us on the journey. And it's a bit of an adventure, isn't it?
It's a massive adventure.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
So we'll keep you up to speed on when and if the offer is accepted. We'll put that out as a video straight away. And
Thanks for watching. Sorry, last week's video was a little bit late.
yeah,
It was supposed to be a Sunday video, but it came out on the Wednesday because we had big struggles, didn't we?
yeah, we've had internet issues,
Yeah.
which are now all sorted. So yeah, the aim is every Sunday at 4 p.m. unless we have those kind of issues, and then when we've got more to offer and say, or an update, then a second video on a
Sneaky Wednesday
at 4
evening.
p.m.
Yeah.
So this week's last video went out on the Wednesday because of the Sunday issues. So we'll see you in a few days after this one.
Yeah. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye.